Good morning, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and get started and call the Knoxville TPO Technical Committee to order. Let Dallas get back to his seat this morning to see if we have a quorum. By the looks of it, we have one, so let's just go ahead and get straight into introductions. Beth, if you would, please start us off.
Beth Collins, Lenore City. Laura Smith, East Tennessee Development District.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
James Devil, Sevier County.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Daryl Smith, Town of Farragut.
I'm Tom Claybo, City of Knoxville.
Amy Brooks, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Jack Walls, City of Loudoun, Loudoun County.
Jim Snowden, Knox County.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Pat Downs, Knoxville Area Transit.
Deanna Flincham, Knoxville Commuter Pool.
Steve Nielsen, Lakeway MPO.
Troy Everett, TPOt, OCT Region 1.
Durand Hacker, Blount County Highway Department.
Karen Estes, Knox County CSC Transit.
Patrick Berg, City of Oak Ridge.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone participating on Zoom today?
We have Kristen. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Kristen. What was that? Anachario. And Timothy from Stantec, who will be here for the Technical
welcome.
Advisory Committee.
Is there any amendments to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're going to skip the list of acronyms. Item number 2, the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review our minutes from the April 9th, 2024 Technical Committee meeting? Then I need to get a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Need a
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 3, amendment to the Transportation Planning Work Program.
Okay, if you will remember, we did a roadway safety plan, and then we had 2 applications for federal funding. One was through the City of Knoxville put in an application, and they were successful. And then we kind of had a regional application, and the only thing that got awarded was this little piece of work to, as you know, the safety plan, it looked within the urban area. So we looked to take this funding for Anderson County and continue that planning effort for the portion that's outside the urban area. And it's a small grant. They were awarded $24,000 worth of federal funds, and Anderson County themselves will put up the $6,000 match. But it's going to come to the TPO, and so we're going to have to administer it. So therefore, it has to be in our work program. So you'll see there's a resolution that's attached that the executive board would vote for, and then there's a budget table. So this doesn't impact any of our other funding. It's simply brand new money coming in, and we have to put it in our work program.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Is there any questions for Doug? Okay, I need a motion to recommend approval of this to go to the executive board.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, wow. Is there any discussion? Mr. Boone, do you have any discussion? Just checking. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item number 4, consideration of fiscal year 2023-2026 Transportation Improvement Project cost overruns.
I will do that. There we go. Several cost overruns that we're going to go over. Got a little bit of general information about them, and then as well at the end have a summary of kind of the cost overruns to date and where we are with those balances inclusive of today's overruns. So it gives you a little heads up. So again, cost overruns, the policy of approving these with the technical committee was developed with the existing TIP process to have a little more transparency as we're addressing those things versus them being administratively approved if they didn't rise to the level of an amendment previously. That policy, you recall, just to summarize, if it is an increase of more than 25% or in excess of 25% of the total project cost, or increases TPO-derived funds in excess of $500,000 federally than it is approved by this board. The first is the Accelerated Bus Corridor Stops and Passional Information Install Project. You guys got an update, catch up on this project last month, going over what has been kind of the evolution of the project as we moved along. The request is to add additional NEPA and design funds. The total funding request is $610,000 federally, $750,000 added to it. It is adding $675,000 in additional NEPA costs and increasing the design phase to $400,000. This represents a 10.6% total project cost increase, so it doesn't meet that trigger, but it does, of course, increase the federal funding of $610,000. This project also has a proposed amendment to administer these project changes, assuming this is approved kind of in the next item on the agenda. So just so you know, total construction costs that you see there, $11 million. That's currently programmed out in fiscal 27, as you probably heard last month. Total of all phases just under $13 million right now on this project. I'll go ahead and proceed and give a summary of each of these, and then if there are questions on any of them individually, we can talk about that. This one is a bit of a unusual in the sense that the PM 2.5 CMAQ funding, relatively recently we were advised that we had programming authority on these, so we're kind of catching up and in need to draw down the existing PM 2.5 balance here in fiscal 24 so that the state is in a better position to request additional authorization of funds when those comes up later in the year in August, I believe. So this is kind of a fast track, and flexing these funds to CAT for some of their capital needs is the best option to be able to draw these funds down in a expedited fashion by July. In fact, the federal share of this funding that it is new, but we are kind of routing it through a cost overrun request in the sense just to kind of have transparency for where these funds are going. This is a request to purchase 7 electric buses, and this would allow us again to draw down a little bit over $7 million of that PM 2.5 balance that we have that's been a request from TDOT kind of fiscal management. So again, that total capital cost just under $9 million for purchasing the electric buses. A CMAQ PM 2.5 fund status summary. Here's kind of just the balance of that. The City of Knoxville request for the ABC project is $610,000 federal funding. That's 7% of that current balance of $8.7 million. And that is the unprogrammed amount, not necessarily unobligated amount. The CAT request, again, a little over $7 million. That's 82.7% of the current balance. If we move those funds down, the project reserve balance as we sit here right now would dip under $1 million, but we do get about $5 million a year on that programming going forward. So October 1, when we get to federal fiscal 25, that balance would go back up to $5.8 million and an additional $5 million in fiscal 26. The table that you see on the bottom, there will be a similar one for the STBG funds in a moment. We're going across what's programmed currently in the TIP, and then we've got those funds. The middle tier of funding is the current projections, and then you'll see revenues, and then the bottom line when you get to balance and projected balance would be if we do approve those. You'll see the new overrun request in that second line to the bottom, and again you see a current balance of that is 778. That 901 is actually 891, $10,000 off there, bad typing. Just under $900,000 in the current balance. Again, $5.8 million after October 1st and 10.8 in fiscal 26. STBG cost overrun request. This is from Farragut, Union Hobbs Road improvements, reconstruct 2-lane road with the addition of turn lanes and bicycle facilities. Again, this is an existing project. The current engineer's estimate was just updated, and as with many dated updates, we're having some significant increases there. The current funding that's programmed for construction is $5.5 million. the construction estimate that has been updated to 7.9. So we're requesting an overrun request of $2.4 million for this. The federal share, $1.92 million, and then a 34.5% increase to the total project cost. So kind of triggering both of those tests for the cost overrun policy that's been established. Total for all phases cost just under $9.5 million there. LSTBG fund status summary. Again, the request $1.9 million. That is just under 30% of the current reserve balance of $6.5 million. If you look out in the last column in fiscal 26, that's the total running unprogrammed balance that you see there, 6.5. If you go down then to the bottom two lines, you'll see that new overrun request programmed in there and the projected balance as you would move forward in the fiscal year. So this would take that balance from 6.5 down to just under $4.6 million in the current programming. Let me pause if there are any questions about any particular projects, and then I do have that overall summary of overruns that have been previously approved, and then showing these projected as well.
Sorry, could you go back to the, that slide?
This slide? Mm-hmm.
No, it was not that slide. It was the other one. That slide. The NEPA document. So the NEPA is increasing $675,000. Is that because you modified it, or why is that?
It has been modified, and they continue to work on design and NEPA projects for this project, kind of refining the scope. City of Knoxville could probably speak to that, or perhaps Ann, whomever wishes.
Yeah, so one of the key elements that we discussed last month was that we've added a significant number of additional stops. And with that, we increased our number of especially historic resources that have to be identified and reviewed. You can imagine Broadway is an older corridor, commercial corridor, and with the timeline of 50 years back, there are a number of buildings along that corridor that hit as a potential historic resource that need to be investigated. So we went from 12 stops to, I think, 27. I'm going off memory, so I apologize if that's not accurate. But that impacted our, historic resources. We're assessing more than 190 properties. So it's going to take some time and some money. But thank you.
Yep. No, thank you. That's the question I had.
Any other questions on any of the projects? If not, I'll give you another moment to think as I talk a little bit about the cost overrun summary, just to kind of bring you up to date where we are on projects that have been approved as we're moving forward. And that is a little smaller than I had hoped on the scale. So these, as we had moved forward on the LSTBG program, you may recall we had a fairly significant increase for Carpenter's Grade that was brought to this committee. We had a small increase for the Boyds Creek Highway project for Sevierville. That did not trigger either one of these items, but it is reflected here in the summary. The current Union Hobbs Road project in there, if that is approved, the total cost overruns will be $4.85 million, and the current reserve balance currently stands at 6.5. If we would improve today's overrun request, again, that number through the life of the project right now would be about $4.6 million. CMAQ PM 2.5 program, as we move forward with that. The original one that we had on this, Oak Ridge Highway, their signal timing optimization phase 2 had a significant overrun that was approved back in August of last year, it looks like. We had a small increase, or a modest increase, for Middlebrook Pike ATMS expansion that is just under the triggers for these, so that was approved at the staff level and processed as a modification. Now we've got today's 2 requests for the ABC project, as well as for the CAT increase for their capital purchases. Again, cost overrun amounts, if we add all these together, $9.5 million, the majority of which is this capital request from CAT. And then the projected balance, as you see there, current balance 18.5, and this will bring us down to 10.8 through the life of the TIP. Any questions or debate? If not, we do request the approval of these cost overruns.
Mr. Chairman, I feel somehow uniquely qualified to speak to some of that. Just as an observation, I know all of us bring these projects here to this point, and there's been a lot of time and energy and effort put into getting them developed to the point where they're ready to be into construction. But we're often asked to make these decisions based on estimates, which oftentimes are assembled with contingencies and things that don't necessarily, you don't know if you have a $6 million project until you let it, until you bid it, until you advertise it. I'll tell you 6 months ago with Carpenter's Grade, for example, we were working with estimates and still are. We were still in right-of-way phase, and now right-of-way's been certified, and I would tell you we hope to bid it within the next 3 months, but have done things to that project, for example, with consultants and with the mindset of making it a less expensive project. I think we are probably in the ballpark of $6.5 to $7 million on that project now, but you don't know until you put it out there for bid. So I would ask, just like we did 6 months ago, ask Daryl to say what he thinks that really is. He's working with an estimate, and that's really all he can work with at this point, with the hopes that the market, or by the time that it's bid, will tell you what that project's really worth. So I'd put more, stock in, and the engineering or the planning or the municipal folks to tell you what they think that project really is. But we understand you get to this point, you really do have to work with estimates, and sometimes the estimate doesn't match up fairly to what the value of the project is.
Thank you for those comments, and I think everyone around this table that works these projects understands that. I don't know that the public always understands that, we do the best we can with the estimates we have, but materials and labor continue to increase and our projects continue to fluctuate those estimates. So thank you for those comments. Daryl, you have any comments you'd like to make this time?
Well, I can say that we felt like we had a fairly conservative amount of funding already set up for this project. We did a nearly identical project that we finished 2 years ago in the range of about $3.2 million. And if you add CEI for this project, we had in mind that 5.5 would surely do it. The new estimate came in considerably higher. So.
Any questions for Daryl at this time? Okay. Do you suggest staff that we do these all as one vote, or do we need to break these apart, or what's kind of the thought here?
I suppose that is depending on whether they're going to be approved or not. If there is comfort, if we wish to do them individually, I mean, that's relatively quick enough.
Any consensus on the board how we should handle this?
I would suggest grouping them.
Okay.
Do the PM 2.5 ones as a group, and then the STBG one separately. I think that certainly makes sense.
And I think the point needs to be made that you're kind of singing to the choir, in that everyone knows that we're dealing with this, and that saying, the bid, it's always going to come in higher. That's why we plan for contingency, money in a kitty to make up these differences. Also, if you don't fund it at this point, all the work that's been done to date is lost. So, yeah, I'll make a motion to group.
Okay. Need a second on that? Yeah, it's kind of okay. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. So now we need a motion
for the
recommendation of the.
So that would be for the accelerated bus corridor, passenger information install overrun request, as well as the CAT cost overrun request. And let me, one additional piece of information here on this one, just to clarify, this again is kind of a direction to draw down these funds here, literally in the next 60 days or so, and that we do anticipate that going forward, since this has kind of come to us, we will be working to have a project call for next year to address that. So we are not sitting here in March or April of next year finding a place to put these funds when we get the same request from TDOT to not get to as close to zero as we can. So just kind of FYI on that. So that'll be a funding opportunity for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion to recommend to Executive Board the CMAQ projects at this time.
This is not, to clarify, this is not recommended to Executive Board. Technical Committee is the final arbiter of cost overruns.
Excuse me, I misspoke. So we need a
This is
motion to
approval.
approve then.
Make a motion to approve.
Need a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on. Union Hobbs Road, STBG cost overrun.
This is a recommendation to Executive Board.
This is
No.
also, all cost
Oh.
overruns are approved at the Executive Board.
Wow, we have power,
Or at the
guys.
technical
This is
committee
great.
level.
All
We're very
right.
powerful.
Moving on. All right, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Need a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All
Thank
right, moving along. Item number, where we at?
Number 5.
Amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2026 Transportation Improvement Program.
Correct. This is a bit of the same water we were just in. This is the project amendment now following on the cost overrun approval for the ABC passenger information install, an existing project, air quality exempt amendment. This actually is removing funding. It's a little bit odd kind of because of the schedule. So we are adding that PM 2.5 money that we just talked about, but we are removing the construction phase from the current TIP because this is currently slated for fiscal 27, which does not exist in this fiscal. We only go out to 26. So to update the schedule, we're moving that. The other thing that I will point out with this request for this project is that we want to be clear that the amendment also does clarify that the construction phase will require additional funding above the current CMAQ award amounts to complete. We were removing, as you see, we were removing about $6 million in CMAQ funding. That was what was programmed for construction. And in fact, we have a construction cost estimate of $11 million. So we've got somewhere in excess of, a little in excess of $5 million of a current shortfall projected for that construction phase out in fiscal 27, just for transparency there. But again, this is programming the money that we just approved for the NEPA and design phases and then adjusting the schedule and putting that clarification language in there. And we do recommend approval of this amendment and also reaffirmation of the transportation planning process self-certification. And this, you're not quite as powerful. This does go to the executive board.
Well, okay.
I had a quick
Got a
question.
quick question over here.
And I'm assuming if on these cost overruns, it doesn't preclude or prevent the individual or the agency, if this board were to deny that cost overrun, they can still use the cap that the federal government previously had and them fund the delta, right?
Locally, certainly. That's certainly.
So it doesn't prevent them in the event that would happen. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would anticipate that this would be something that would come back in, potentially using some future PM 2.5 money. But I know that the city is exploring other opportunities and grant funding that's available. As you know, we get NOFOs every day of the week right now. So they'll be looking at trying to, put together the total funding package for that when we get out in those future years.
Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to make a recommendation to the executive board.
So moved.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, TDOT and FHWA updates. TDOT.
Real quick, want to introduce we have our leadership here from the region. So if you have specific questions, make sure that you hit them up. Steve Borden is here with his staff, with Dexter and Christy. Steve was here. Oh, he's close. He knew I was going to talk about him. But they are here if you have any other specific questions or needs. Really appreciate them being here. We don't get that. They've been here a lot lately. but to answer questions and try to get through our 10-year plan and stuff. So it's very important that if you have stuff, please grab them because they're busy folks, and I appreciate them being here. As far as our stuff, of course, we're working with Loudon, working with an on-call, getting some of their stuff moving, and then our other planning grant have all been kicked off. They're moving, and not all of them made this time. The ones that were not chosen this time, I definitely want to encourage you all to reapply for our next round. We had several counties that had multiple applications. We had a lot of really good applications in that, but we did end up selecting 6 from this area. 2 of them are highway or the road inventories. So that'd be really good to kind of complement what we're working with. We're working with the MPO on a couple of the other ones as well because they're overlapping. So that's basically what we have.
Thank you for that update.
Dexter, y'all have anything else? Sorry.
You sure, Dexter? Okay. FHWA not on the line? Okay. Anything updates from FHWA you know of, Doug?
The only update that they had is there is a program out there now called a TIP. Sorry. It's TIIP. A TIP, not just TIP. It's a TIP, TIATIIP. It's active transportation grants. So there's money out there for y'all to chase, similar to multimodal type grants, but it's open to everyone, including the DOT and you all and individuals. So please check those programs out. And with all grants, if you are looking for funding for anything, TDOT does have a really good grant funding database. Feel free to use that. If you see something needs added to that, let me know. If you don't have the link, let us know. We'll make sure that you get a hold of it.
Great, thank you. Item number 7, other business, Doug.
Yeah, I have a few things. There on your agenda, you do see the next executive board meeting and then our next technical committee meeting on June 11th. I did want to have Ann Wallace come up from WSP. She has a survey she wants to mention.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'll keep this very brief, but as part of the long-range transportation planning for TDOT and the Traffic Operations Division, TDOT is actually studying connected autonomous vehicles, or CAV readiness, for the state of Tennessee. And so we've developed, in conjunction with some experts around the country, a survey about especially traffic signals and how they integrate and how they have opportunity to improve connected autonomous vehicle readiness for future deployment. TDOT's really looking at this as a way to understand where they need to go in terms of their funding and in terms of preparedness for the future. So we have sent this to Doug and the team at the TPO, and they'll be distributing it to the membership. We would ask that you all take time to fill it out. It's a fillable PDF. We need those responses back by July 31st. So, if you're on the beach having fun for vacation and you just need a few minutes to feel connected back to work, take the survey with you. The link will be in an email. It should be fairly easy to provide responses. But if you do have any questions, myself or Michael Rebick from WSP or Cam Morris, who's with the ITS manager for Traffic Division for TDOT, would be good points of contact, and that will all be included in the information that Doug and the staff send out to you all. But if you have any initial questions, happy to try and address those.
Questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you all so much, and we appreciate your participation.
Okay, I got a few other things. You may remember a couple of meetings ago, Ali Ketron from the planning staff came and talked about an EPA grant that the Knox Planning, the TPO, and the city of Knoxville received looking for at greenhouse gases. And this is a little bit unusual in that it's for the MSA, so it's beyond our normal working boundaries. But greenhouse gas, it makes transportation sector makes up almost 60% of the greenhouse gas pollutants out there. But we're also challenged to look beyond transportation. So one of the sectors is utility, energy, and waste. And so we need help with some contacts with some of the utility providers in your region. So I'm going to be sending an email out later this afternoon with the ones we've identified in your area. And if you have some contacts, we need one of our parts is we have to do some data collection. And so, if you know someone that we can contact, it will really help us open the door. We know sometimes the utility providers are a little bit tough to engage. So look for that and help us out any way you can. I really would appreciate it. Third, we've been looking back over our appointment and proxy letters, and a lot of them are either we're missing or we just have emails. So Dallas over the next couple of weeks is going to reach out to everyone to try to get those reestablished. So I know it's a pain, but we're going to ask you to get a new up-to-date letter. And also, if you can clearly identify it in there, if you can't make it, who would be your proxy? We've been just kind of operating on y'all sending us an email, and that's probably not the best way to be doing business. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. The August meeting, this is a little bit advance notice. There is a statewide MPO conference that we do with TPOt. It conflicts with our August meeting, so we don't know that for sure we'll have an August meeting, but we're thinking of moving that to August the 5th, and we'll send you out a notice as moving it up a week because almost all of our staff attends that conference. So just kind of giving you an early heads up. And then the last thing I have is, you may have heard this or not, but Dory Karen, y'all know her. She was our administrative assistant. She is retiring this month. So she was unable to be here today, but we wanted to really, she started out as the TPO admin, and we wanted to kind of, she may be watching us on TV, but we wanted to let her know how much we really appreciate all the work she's done over the years for the TPO. And we're hoping to have some type of retirement event, and we're going to definitely invite you guys, probably somewhere downtown, maybe to go out and celebrate all the work she's done for not only the TPO, but planning. So I was just going to let you know, kind of look for that. We'll get you out an email about that event. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Well, we wish Dory well on her retirement, and she will be missed. So, number 8, public comments. Anyone? No one signed up? Okay. Number 9, adjournment. Need a motion to adjourn. If it's second.
All right.
Good.
Stick around. We got a workshop starting right here.
Stick around. We should have Can we have a 5-minute break, Doug? Sir, please.
It may take us a couple minutes to get him plugged in and stuff. So, but make sure you come back here.
Don't run off. Thank you.
Don't take off.
He wants to.
He's taking over, I think. Can you check if he's got sound?
You should. All he has to do is go ahead and share his screen.
Okay. Can he?
You want to try and share your screen? Okay. There we go. Let me just hide this.
Can we hear him?
Can you try and talk and see if we can hear you?
Testing 1, 2, 3, go Buffalo Bills.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
How are you doing?
All right. We have to get bigger tables.
Well, we usually set up one on the end, but we didn't think about it. Tech made it bigger than that. It'll work out better for something like this too. Or sit up there and talk.
We used to.
Karen can't leave.
Felt we ran on too long there a little bit. We didn't, unfortunately, have too much debate, but one I wanted to be really clear about was that future funding shortfall. I wanted to have that kind of overall summary of the cost overruns that we had, policy. Another big SCBG. He'll be checking around about final contract stuff, I think. We're final.
All right, everybody get back to work. I had 3 escape before I could get back up here. I'm sorry, but
Yep.
we've got their names and number. We'll track them down.
All right.
Mr. Conger, over to you.
Yeah, I'll do a quick introduction here and then turn it over to our consultant, Timothy Tresalevi, who's participating remotely today. So, of course, work is still ongoing with our mobility plan update. So today we have another technical advisory committee meeting. This is the third one. This one, of course, first 2 were in person with Timothy, but he's participating remotely today. You have an agenda at the back of your packet here. So main thing is just a quick update and then to go through a demo of how we can review the existing projects in the mobility plan, give us any updates on those as the first step towards moving toward the next project selection process. But I assume you can hear us, Timothy, and you have this control of the screen, so looks like that's working. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Can I get a thumbs up? Everybody can hear me? All right, wonderful. Appreciate it, everyone. So just a quick updated schedule and some outreach to date, just to get everybody up to speed. And then we want to spend some time on what we're calling a project audit, and that is the spreadsheet. And then an interactive mapping demo, which should really complement the spreadsheet. Think of it as something that's secondary, and that will be your homework assignment for the next 2 weeks after this. Everybody sound good with that? Great. So generally speaking, we're in that middle portion, which is at least 50% of the project. The early assembly, review, and initial outreach, consider that concluded at this point. We're in the meat of the needs assessment and some of those early initial recommendations. This is kind of the bulk of what we're doing today, specifically the project review and audit. And then once this process is complete in the summer, we'll be into the, kind of that last piece of really refining and reporting process. Any heartburn or questions on the overall schedule there? Hearing none, we'll move forward. You guys listened into that meeting. That was wonderful. You guys are really to the point. I mean, very executive-like. I kind of loved seeing it. Some metrics thus far. Our knoxmobility.org website is actually being managed by the TPO. city and county planning. And we understand that they've distributed that link to more than 3,000 kind of people on their newsletter and email listserv. Don't really have a new metric for how many people have visited the webpage, but it's gone out to our participants, as many people as we are aware of, and have that list that's being kept. As far as survey participants, we're up to about 750. Really good push after our February outreach. I like seeing that kind of response. Similarly, with the interactive web map, where people are noting points of interest, hazards, destinations people visit, things like that, barriers to mobility. We've got more than 430 of those, and a good distribution around the TPO. I would say they're not all in one county or just two counties. I'm sure there are still some gaps here and there, but really good distribution across the whole TPO. Really satisfied thus far. We held 5 virtual focus group, what we call listening sessions, with more than 84 participants all totaled. And if you participated in them, we used an interactive whiteboard space called Mural to kind of pose questions and get responses and track what people were saying. We learned a lot from those listening sessions, basically how people feel, how they're perceived in the region, what kind of economic strategies, what kind of transportation strategies, or maybe barriers get in their way. I think that was probably the most productive kind of sessions of the project thus far. And then in February, we held 3 community events. We had more than 60 people sign in. There were more than that who came in and didn't exactly sign in, but this is how many we can put a number to. We held 3 different meetings. The first was on a Monday night in the evening in downtown Knoxville at the Transit Center. The second one was virtual in the afternoon at lunchtime, kind of one of your transportation talks like you've done in the past. Had good participation there. And then Tuesday evening in Blount County at the library in Maryville, if I pronounced that properly. There will be a second round of community events in kind of early fall. So that's kind of the last remaining piece of engagement thus far. So questions or comments on metrics or outreach opportunities thus far? Okay, wonderful. What a great audience. A couple of examples of what that looked like in many different locations. There was a lot of discussion and listening, but there was also some, please tell us about certain things and prompts. So there's opportunities here. We had people give us kind of their visioning of what the region looks like by 2050 and gathered as many of those on the wall so we can read them all. And then virtually we asked questions like your most challenging transportation problems. Just note that development patterns, affordable housing, population increase, I mean, all amongst those important things that people are talking about. It's always more than just transportation, right? It's all related to land use and development process. If we could distill that information down into less than a 4-page memo, which we have shared, we had more than 175 contributions of your favorite things, and we made one big, large word cloud of what those were. Activities, family activities, destinations for sure. I love the one comment of this being just a perfectly sized city, and by city I mean region, because that's what they meant. When we asked what one thing they could fix, it was connectivity. Of course, people talked about the bus. Holistic mobility choices. I think people were just commenting on the whole kind of range of options more than just driving. Preserving open space came up a lot, of course. I also wanted to highlight the fix existing roads first. We got a lot of that sentiment of, and I've heard it in many other metros as well. No more new projects until we can fix and maintain our existing projects. Heard that a lot up and down the East Coast. When asked about the region, what it could look like, density and development and housing choices were definitely in there. The idea of walkable cities and 15-minute cities kind of came up here and there. Vision Zero, something that this region is already kind of working into about reducing speeds and making it more safe for our community members, all hours of the day, came up a lot. Streetscapes, of course, and main corridors. Oh, complete the highway projects. Yep, that was a good one there too. Some mention of bikeways. It really mentioned those advocates who came in looking for multimodal topics definitely talked a lot about walking and biking, right? So they came and made their opinions felt. And I think by the end of it, we had even the strongest participants who came in with agenda really opened up and communicated with us during the process. So I want to commend everyone who helped support us in that outreach. We heard from a lot of people, and almost all of them left smiling. So that was a win. All right. So what are we doing here today? I'm sorry. I heard something. Nope.
We're good.
Okay, moving on. The point of today's exercise is we've got to start reviewing previous projects and doing what we're called a project audit. And so we're sort of kicking it off here with a demo of an explanation of what's being asked, and then some tools that can kind of help you in the process. So ultimately, everyone has this spreadsheet of your previous 2024 projects. They are sorted by column E, the horizon year, from near to far, and then by, I believe, column C, the ID number. What we're really interested in is for you to filter kind of the projects by your jurisdiction, whether that's your county, your applying agency, and then review whether any of those projects are either completed and we can remove them from the list, whether they substantially changed in the last few years, whether there's something you want to modify about them, or there's absolutely no change. And that's over here in this column, which looks like it's Q. Might have changed by now. So I'm going to pull up my spreadsheet and swap out this graphic for something I can actually interact with. There we go. It is column Q, the status, and there is a drop-down feature in each one of these cells for you to choose no change, project remains, remove the project, probably because it's been completed, constructed, modify the project, and then under the comment, tell us like what you want to change, like what has substantially changed in the last few years. Or if you want to add a new project at the bottom, we definitely want to revise and get a better understanding of what that looks like. So my recommendation to this group, and we're going to kind of ask that you review this spreadsheet between now and the 28th, 2 weeks from today. It's probably easiest to start by filtering either by column H, your county, or J, if you are the applying agency. So with that drop down, you could choose, say, turn them all off and just say you want to be Alcoa. There you go. So these are just projects where the applying agency is Alcoa. You have 8 of them. Review each one of these and tell us in column Q whether there's no change to this project description and details, or whether there's some kind of change, and tell us all about it. So between Q and R, that's what we're asking you to do. If you are a spreadsheet type person, then this is the easiest way for you to kind of review through. If you are a visual person, kind of like myself, we're going to demo an ArcGIS Online tool that can help you look at these as well, spatially and geographically. We're going to stick here for just a couple more minutes, though. Now, I would like to note that the column C, the MPO ID, is probably something you're familiar with. It's a 13- number or a 17- number or a 21- number. But to go with those, there's also column D, the TIP IDs, and those have all been updated to reflect. So if you know what you're searching for and you don't want to just filter by agency, you can always do a Control F find, type in the ID you're looking for. Maybe it's a 23, 2023, 204. It finds it for you right there. And then you can go line by line. If you maybe have a list of project IDs you want to check, Control F might be the easiest way to do it. If you have a certain jurisdiction to filter by, you can do it this way. So the idea is this spreadsheet's been shared with everyone. You've got your own version. Go through and just kind of mark off to us the ones that are good to go, no changes, or what you want to change about them. So I want to pause here and make sure everyone understands the task at hand. There are, and I acknowledge, there are 150 plus projects in this list. It's very daunting. No one is responsible for all of them, but if we can kind of delegate out to those who know better than most, whether it's by jurisdiction or else, we'd love to compile this list and database individually, have them all come to Stantec. We'll review the ones that have changes, we'll flag their change, and we'll kind of send out a revised, here's what we've been told to everybody.
Timothy, I want to jump in real quick.
Please.
Mike. Yeah, we have not shared this yet with the folks, so this will, after today's meeting, I didn't know if we got mixed up on that or just make sure. I think you were iterating still, working on this. recently. So what we can do, we'll send this out with, instructions, of course, and could even filter it, by agency or county as we send it out, because it will be in Excel format. Would you think that makes sense, Timothy? Or
That's a great point. Like this is definitely something that comes out with the agenda meeting minutes. If you want to filter, you certainly can. There are a lot of options here, which would just make a lot of tabs. It is already set up to be filterable. So if whomever receives this, if they kind of just double check that the county's correct, and if you have multiple counties for a project, it might start in one county, end in another, make sure they're both selected. Applying agency might be easier to get to more quickly if I'm speculating. But absolutely, we want to put this in your hands. This is not a light lift. It's not a quick turnaround. We're asking for 2 weeks to kind of screen through, and then we will compile after that. After this 2-week window, we're really going to start the new call for projects. That's kind of why we're trying to get this one out of the way first and move on to the new projects to add second. But happy to field any more questions about the table before I go to the demo of ArcGIS Online, which I think ArcGIS Online is a complement, but I think the table is the primary way of communicating. No questions at all? So maybe just as an example, here's 2 studies that have been completed. So ID number 19-703 and 19-707, Jamestown Boulevard study and a countywide transportation study. The description in column N is a little easier. And then they've both been marked for removed because they've been completed to date. Those ones just easiest ones to knock out. Things that have been kind of completed, just let us know that way. If something is modified, it might be kind of difficult to type in the comment exactly what you want to modify. If you can, great. If not, we'll just follow up with you because it will say modified, give me a call, name and number. We'll get that information transferred as best we can. Okay, I'm going to put a pause on the spreadsheet for now. That's our primary tool for kind of validating, and please use the filter options at the top to kind of get that narrowed down. Move this over here. Back to the PowerPoint slides. Now I want to go through the interactive mapping demo, which, like I said, it's a secondary option. It's a complement, but some people deal in project spreadsheets. Some people deal in visuals. We're trying to accommodate both. So what we did was we took the points and lines and put them into ArcGIS Online. There's a link here. We'll also share the link as we go after this with you guys. And what we're asking is the same 4 questions. Zoom to your geographic area, find out more about the project, make sure it's the right one, and then add either a no change button right on top of it, add a remove button because it's been complete, add a modify button because you want to make some kind of change, or a new project, whether it's an intersection or a corridor. Go ahead and start marking those, and we can kind of follow up with you about what those look like. I'm going to pull up my other demo. It looks like this. I'm going to hit the page refresh. So this link will be what you experience. And just because it's fun, I'll put this in the chat box. There you go for others. So navigating this panel, I want to talk through a couple things about making your life easier, because ArcGIS Online is great. It also has limitations. So at your starting point, you can pan in and zoom as needed with just scrolling, or you can also use the zoom in, zoom out tool here. If you click and drag anywhere, you can move around and then scroll in even further. Fun. The upper right-hand portion of the panel, I think it's really important to talk through these 3 things. The first button is called the Add Comments, and that's where you have the option to make a comment on top of the map, right? So this is where you're adding something new. By default, the page will open on the second button, which is just the legend. And the reason that's there is because, number 1, you don't accidentally add data when it's on the legend. Number 2, if you click on a button, you get all of the project details of that project, and these correspond with the table. So if you're looking for a specific ID number from the table, you'll find it by finding the project and clicking, and you'll see the corresponding 09-616. Now, this is disabled when you're on the other tab, the add comments. So you see if you go click on a project, nothing happens. So if this happens to you, and it's happened to me several times, the reason is you are now trying to add data to the map rather than query the map. So ArcGIS Online is a little confused. What are you actually trying to do here? So it's because you want to be on this second one, the legend, where you can find out more about this corridor project right here, 18-603, which is another one of those ITS type projects. Whole bunch of those in there. So I think the spreadsheet is your primary starting point. I think that's where you can identify the project numbers that you care about. And then the map is a great way to cross-reference. So if you're a visual person and you know project by length or orientation or distance, that's a great way to look it up. Your best tools, and you can, if you miss and keep clicking, you can keep clicking until you get it. If you click on something and the top says one of more than one, then this arrow will help you cycle from this project, 138880, to 2 of 2, which is actually the same project, just represented as a point and not a line. So I believe there's other ones down here that overlap. Thought I saw them earlier. Yeah, 1 of 3. So here's one project that's highlighted, and you can also zoom in to see a little bit better. This is 13858. You click next. It goes to the other project, which is 18603. So again, overlapping projects. This one much longer, in fact, 7 miles longer. And then you click next to the third one. You can cycle through the third project back to the corridor portion of that intersection project. So the good news is they're all there. The difficult news is sometimes they're stacked on top of one another. So be patient and know what you're looking for. And if you see this, 1 of, 2 of, 3 of, several, that's why. I would love to find one of those example studies. Purchase. Nope. So some of these projects that are kind of off in the middle of nowhere are probably the study projects. The ones that are located on a line are either an intersection or a replacement vehicle purchase. That's kind of why they're there. What we're asking you to do on the table is identify what's changing, even if it's no change. And then on the map, kind of same thing. And so the idea is if you zoom to your jurisdictions and you know what you want to say, you go to the add comments and it's either no change, remove, or modify. You click one of them and then you click right on top of the dot as it is on here. I'm going to do one example off to the side so it doesn't confuse everybody by clicking off first. And I'm going to put it right over here in the middle of the water. So this project right here, French Broad River, click, is no change. And I'm going to say project 99-999 is still needed. Hit save, you hit close, and there it is. So the idea is you get to cross-reference the projects you're looking for. And when you zoom out and you see that they're all covered in your jurisdiction, you know you've done them and checked them all. So if they're still not covered up by one of these objects, you still have a couple to look at, right? So this is your secondary option, table being your first option. And this will help you just kind of correlate the two and make sure you haven't missed one. So I want to pause there to make sure no one is completely off base. Here's another one. This project, shift horizon year to beyond 2030. So we know that there's going to be a modification of this project. Right now it's classified in 2030, which you can also tell from the legend. The 2030 is the orange color. Also looks like that. Good reference point. The near projects are hot and intense. The later projects are cold and dull.
So my question is, we do not need to do both of these, the map and the table. We only need to do one. Is that correct?
You do not need to do both.
Okay.
We're giving you both options just to make sure that you can audit yourself, I guess, and cross-reference it. But the table is definitely most important, especially if you're a table person. Fair question. I appreciate it. 9216. Does anyone want to ask how much time you have to do this?
2 weeks.
2 weeks is correct. Just making sure you're paying attention. All right. And again, I acknowledge that not everybody's a map person. I acknowledge that everybody's a spreadsheet person. It's okay. If you want, if you have questions, I want to make myself available for what I'm calling office hours. To give me a call, we can kind of demo, we can go through your projects. That's perfectly fine. I want to make sure everyone's comfortable doing these things because it's not for everybody, but we got to get it right. Back to this guy. So that's demoing this. The link is there. It will be shared alongside the spreadsheet. And action items. So what we're really after here are those completed projects. And we're going to go ahead and ballpark. There's got to be at least 20, 25, maybe 30 of them ballpark. After that, we're really going to focus on new projects. But if you want to identify the new project in your list now, if you want to specify it on the map now, you're giving us a head start. I would appreciate that. That'd be amazing. But also, I think it's important to ask if your jurisdictions have made any significant policy changes in the last 4 years. Like, we understand now that we're moving in this direction and we care about these sorts of things. It's great anecdotal evidence kind of there of kind of what the trends are. So in addition to projects that are completed and projects that we'd like to add, if you're trying to focus on new things, if there's a new policy emphasis, let's communicate those as well. Write them down, email them, send them through Mike, send them straight to me. That's fine as well. Just, we're trying to track where this region is heading and what the tip of the spear kind of ideas are. So I think that's really important to include if you can. In the meantime, just want to put in a note that Stantec is still kind of synthesizing all modes, all performance levels of existing performance and conditions. More than just PM 1, 2, and 3, also the ITS, plus also sustainability and resilience. We've got a lot of people working a lot of different things, and synthesizing it all together into a very long technical memorandum is where we're at. This is kind of operating the side to kind of audit and add new projects. And the timeline for new projects will kind of start as we get these audit completed in the next 2 weeks and probably run through all of June to get those ideas fleshed out on paper and itemized. And what I wanted to mention on that, I've got off to my side, is the call for projects that we're going to have will probably go through now or the next 2 weeks through the end of June. Friday the 28th is their tentative internal deadline there. We want to put together kind of more of a standard fillable form in PDF. If you add in the project corridor, the extents from and to, estimated distance there, how it advances one of the 8 goals of the TPO, and you'll have a fillable form kind of area to explain that. Any related project IDs in the vicinity, way that maybe you're connecting with or crossing a different project in the MTP. And we'll kind of use these submitted sheets as a project record for future context. Now, having said that, if you know where your projects are going to go, you can start here already. This is all draft. It's just internal with a new project button. And if it's along a corridor, you can enter a series of 4 or 5 along a corridor and call it all a new project. This is a great way to kind of get it pinned on the map. And then we'll know to follow up with you in your jurisdiction to learn more about that project. So there's no reason to not start now, but we are going to kind of develop a call for project fillable form to get that information included. So that's what I had to share. I want to make sure there's no more like questions of what do you really think we're doing here, Timothy? Remember, it's a spreadsheet number 1, interactive map kind of 1B.
So Timothy, one thing I wanted to also mention along with that, you mentioned the goal areas, and those we have already established the prioritization of and associated scores. So it's like a 100-point scale, and Stantec is also developing, how to actually quantify those metrics such as safety, congestion, other factors that we have as goal areas. And then as much as possible, making that data-driven and quantitative, where you overlay the projects in a GIS and it can attach scores. And so that will give us something to shoot at. It's not the be-all, end-all. We're not going to fund automatically the project that's highest scored or whatever. It's just another factor that is considered, and you all have obviously the final prioritization ranking of projects, especially within your jurisdictions that come out of that. But that'll be on down the line as well. So just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. It's, evaluation criteria is the term we try to use, but yes, it's a long process of data-driven and objective, followed by a very long sorting process that is subjective and totally fine. So there will be plenty of opportunities to elevate projects locally and why, but the setup for it, the initial scoring is trying to be as data-driven as possible and as neutral as possible. If you can be neutral when it comes to projects, that's for sure. I'm trying to find an example of what that might look like from the past. I don't think I have a great graphic here for it. Sorry. Questions from the room?
We have one.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Brian from Maryville. Just a question, Timothy, for you or TPO staff. 2030 is the nearest horizon year, and projects that are complete, that's pretty straightforward, or projects that are in construction, I think that's pretty straightforward. What are we using as our line of should it be in the mobility plan or not be in the mobility plan? Let's say a project gets a notice to proceed or obligation of construction dollars this summer. Does the mobility plan need to see that project or not?
That's a good question. We always struggle with those
That's why I ask.
period of projects that we know are coming, and then a lot of times what happens is they don't let on that schedule. So we have to that happens a lot with the TIP, especially where do we carry this project or not? And then Craig sometimes has to put them back in later on. So
I can
if Craig wants to weigh in.
clarify on that one additional piece of, I was wondering, one thing that we do want to do with this mobility plan, which is kind of filling in that gray space, is we intend this project call to also serve as the project call for the next TIP. So we're going to have to kind of fill in how that works, and that is going to be a lot of those projects that are kind of in there if they're in this middle space. And I would encourage us to be as accurate as we can. But if a project in fact does let and obligate, then if you have it on your list now, we're going to pull it out, because if it is obligated, that is the functional last federal action in that regard.
That's, I guess, what I'm saying is if it's already been obligated, then the mobility plan really doesn't need to see it.
Then it's a no.
Okay.
But we often have this, we intend to X.
Yes, right.
And intent doesn't happen, and then we have to go put it back in. Right. So I would say if there's any question, put it in. If we need to kind of pull it out at the last moment, then we can do that. I'd rather do that than put things in after the fact.
Okay. All right.
But we are going to have a discussion about this needs to also have that details for the active projects for the TIP is going to be in this discussion as well. So we're going to jump on that.
Okay. Second question. In the past, we've also had interest on the regional side of projects that aren't necessarily federally funded or locally managed and federally funded, but just basically local projects. What's our intent with that, Mike? I know you always have a keen interest on projects that don't necessarily go down that pipeline.
So 100% locally funded projects?
Sure, yeah.
They do not have to, typically, they don't have to be in the mobility plan unless they reach a threshold of regional significance. And that's not a black and white all the time, but generally you know what it is. If it's a principal or major arterial road that you're adding significant capacity to, then we would call that regionally significant. I mean, one that comes to mind in your area was or new project alignments. You had the Robert C. Jackson road extension. And so we included that. And one in Knox County is Shad Road. Obviously, that's a huge connection there. But if it's just a minor, intersection spot thing, we like to know about it, but it's not necessarily required to be in here.
Okay. We'll use the term subjective, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess the safe way to do it is to let us know about it, and then we can make that determination and consultation. A lot of it comes down to the air quality requirements. We have to make sure we include all the projects from that aspect. that need to be modeled for air quality. So,
And sometimes maybe we've submitted something that we had intentions of it being in an outer horizon year like 2040 or beyond, and then opportunities come up where they get done locally. Those are the kinds of things you can fill that information in down the road or as we go.
right.
Mike, is it fair to say that the default is to include it for now, even if we think we're going to pull it out later, and it just makes it easier to identify it, to list it, pull it out before we get to actually obligating funds, future revenues there. And that way we know about it, we just put it in a different column.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the safe way to do it. And just from the public standpoint, I think it's good to have more in there than less. You know, people get confused about why some projects show up and some don't. I mean, we struggle with grouping projects that aren't individually identified, but some of them are, pretty significant. So we're always trying to see if we can get those made known so everyone out there in the public knows what to expect and wants to see improvements coming. So
I've often had, all these projects included in the list of needs. And then when it comes to the dollar figure, I would put 0, funded some other way. And so it's in there, it just won't cost against your list of projects. And therefore you can very easily flag the ones that are $0 as the ones that will be funded through other programs. And so they're included, they're present, they're visible for the public. They just don't count against you.
Last comment, and then I'll stop talking. Looking forward, I think we're all looking at what we thought of as corridors now becoming phases, and what we thought of as phases are becoming intersection improvements, and everything is kind of scaling down. What's the disposition going into this mobility plan with this idea that a lot of municipalities and a lot of local governments are having to take on projects on the national highway system or on a state route, and it's not at all what we had envisioned doing 5, 10, or 15 years ago. So we're going to have to go into this conversation kind of, knowing where we all stand with each other, because that's where a lot of these improvements need to be made. And if they're not part of TDOT's 10-year plan, then if we don't incorporate some of those into our mobility plan, then that's not a good potential outcome either. So just going into this conversation, what's our general sense of when some of those projects show up in this regional plan?
So I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but I think, they're scaling back of projects may need to occur. And one big unknown that we need to acknowledge here will be that TDOT is kind of shifting to an entire new paradigm as they released the 10-year plan, which was the first ever 10-year fiscally constrained plan. And they've indicated that moving forward, there will be some sort of an annual partnership program call for projects on state routes, but we have not seen, and I don't know if they're not here still. So we haven't seen what that looks like necessarily. And so some of that may be how your project you're kind of alluding to, I think, on the National Highway System, Sevierville Road down there.
Yeah.
May still live as it is if TDOT
I don't see how.
works
I
out
don't think
that.
you can.
But to me, it's not real well known at this point. But I think we do need to try to shift to a mindset of, more quick fix projects. For one thing, they get implemented much faster. And the other thing is the cost aspect, do more with less, Do we set aside specific groupings and have open calls for projects? And just throwing out suggestions here, say we set aside a $3 million safety bucket that goes to spot safety improvements, low cost. Would folks be interested in something like that rather than programming them all to huge capital widening projects that drag out sometimes a decade? Buckets are good. Yeah, so those are things that we'll discuss, I think, as we move forward and do this call for projects. We may find out fiscal constraint, is going to be very tight.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
No more questions for you.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question?
Timothy, any more questions for us?
Do you need your mic? Timothy, the question was asked, do you have any other questions or information?
I do not. You guys are off and running kind of with these tools. Mike, I like what you said about having a bucket set aside per horizon year for just groupings of like safety or intersection improvement projects. I think it's a pretty creative way of saying we're going to earmark this amount for these types of improvements. And we've got way more need than there is funding. So we'll just knock them off the list of high priority to low with each horizon. I kind of like that approach. So let's keep thinking of more ideas like that. I think that's how we're going to go through this efficiently.
Yeah, I think a great example is TPOt is doing a traffic signal modernization program statewide that's way over requested than they have funding for, but there's a huge need out there just for low-hanging fruit of we need modern signal infrastructure here. And so things like that, and those are 100% federally eligible, a lot of these types of projects, spot safety. So there is no local match. And that, I think everybody likes that. So.
Excellent.
All right. We'll be in.
So I want to make myself available for office hours, but I think you probably need to get into the spreadsheet first. And if you have questions, either follow up directly or follow up through Mike, and Mike will establish kind of, maybe it's a couple hours a week on different days. And if people have questions and want to kind of join and ask them, I'm happy to demo it for you at that time.
All right. Yeah. And I'm happy to help anytime as well. Just send me an email. All right. With that, I think we're ready to wrap up. Appreciate it, Timothy.
Thank you guys so much.